Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric and Torta Fleece 2023. It is day 4 or stage 4 of our event. Oh, and I clearly do not have my wheel yet set up. I continued spinning on the silk yesterday. The wheel behaved beautifully once I was no longer in front of the camera. So we'll see if it behaves today or if it decides to be a little bit cranky again. I'm still spinning on the silk. I should be able to finish it up today, and then we'll move on to a different fiber. But let's go ahead and open up our topic bag and find out what the topic is today. Put that back behind me. Okay. Spinning fibers. Oh, this is a very good topic. And one I'm kind of excited about, because when Torta Fleece is over, I'm hoping to start a study of some different fibers than what I normally spin. I'm going to move into spinning some cellulose fibers, but specifically, a number of cellulose fibers, but a bunch of cellulose fibers that have been manipulated by technology and machinery. So I have a wide range of those that have arrived, and I can't wait to try a little bit more in the world of spinning cellulose fibers. So as we get spinning, let's talk about the different fibers that we can spin and that historically have been spun by people. I'm not sure if the wheel right now is happy with being on the rug that's underneath it. That might be the reason why I'm getting some extra squeaking. But sometimes it's just a matter of when I get it repositioned after moving it. And yes, it's doing a bunch of squeaking here at the bottom. There, okay, there we go. That might be a sweet spot. So the fibers that we spin, the fibers tend to fall into 3 categories: protein fibers, cellulose fibers, and man-made fibers. Now, when I say man-made fibers, that is usually referring to a synthetic, something that is made from a non-plant or animal-based starting point. But that the line between natural and man-made gets blurred. Oh, I should say before I go any further, I don't have a second camera set up today. There won't be any extra snaps of me spinning or any other angle of me spinning, because what I noticed is that when I edited yesterday's video, in order to speak to the camera, I found myself doing a lot of little inching along, little short draw, because the silk at times, speaking and spinning silk at the same time, I found that I was doing a lot of short draw, and it doesn't really show up on the second camera any better than what you're seeing here. So just a little caveat for as we go forward. Okay, so back to the topic. So there's a gray area between what we have as natural fibers and man-made fibers, mostly because of the way we're now manipulating some of the natural fibers in order to make them more spinnable, more easily spinnable, and most importantly, trying to create sustainable fibers. Initially, a lot of the fibers, we kept hearing things like green fiber, but the truth is what it is, that I think the industry is moving more towards is understanding the sustainability, whether or not it is a sustainable fiber or whether it's one that has a greater negative impact on the environment. So that topic is one that can get a little bit heated, and so I'm not going to go into that topic much, other than I wanted to clarify, when we're talking about man-made fibers, most of the time what we're talking about is fibers that are made from non-animal or plant sources. So let's start with what is a protein fiber, an animal fiber. And that one, oh, I have to just start right off the bat. When you say protein fiber, you immediately think of sheep's wool or camelid, the alpaca, the llama, the camel. That's what your mind goes to. Maybe you think goats. Maybe you've spun, so the Angora goat, when it is spun, it is mohair. Then we have the cashmere goats. Interesting to read about and talk to people about the cashmere goats and what qualifies as cashmere. It's not specific necessarily to a breed, but a fineness of the undercoat fiber. At least that is what I have been informed of by some breeders. But you think about the animal fibers, you think about the animals. The bunnies, the Angora bunnies, are producing the Angora fiber that blooms into a beautiful halo. You have, you can spin your dog's hair. If the dog, well, you can spin your dog's hair even if it's a short hair, but you're not going to enjoy it much. But some of the longer haired dogs, oh, people spin that. Interesting, that topic came up the other day, and everyone was like, well, how do you get rid of the dog smell? Well, I haven't spun with, I haven't spun specifically with dog fur. I have spun with cat hair a few times. I have spun with long-haired cat hair, which is very similar to spinning my Angora. Especially one of my cats, she produces very, very fine undercoat. And I have spun very short cat hair that I've incorporated into the wool single that I was spinning, so it was kind of prickly. But it was a commemorative little hank of yarn for someone whose beloved cat had passed away, and she kept its, when she'd comb it out, she'd keep its hair, and she kept it, and she asked me if I would spin it into something for her. And so I did. That was a little more of a challenge. I would say if you're ever going to spin, well, I've already, in other videos I've talked about it, I have a belief that you really should wash your animal fur before you spin it, regardless of the animal it comes from. However, with that being said, the hair that has come off of a cat, a short-haired cat, in the later stages of its life, may have a lot of dander and cat spit in it. And when you're asked to spin that at an event, and it hasn't been washed, you better have your allergy medication on hand, because even those of us who aren't allergic or weren't allergic at that time may very well have a little bit of an issue with that much cat dander and cat spit floating around us. But the discussion the other day was, how do you get rid of the odor? And if you've spun wool, especially wool from a fleece that you've scoured, you'll know that sometimes you'll get a ram's fleece, and it can have a bit of a stronger odor. I know that my male bunnies had a stronger odor. So the first step is to wash it with a good scouring agent. And I have found that Orvis paste works really well for me to help get the lanolin and the dirt and some of the odor out. But a tip that I suggest for people to try if they're having problems getting an odor out of their fiber, their clothing, you know, human body odor and all of that. Isopropyl alcohol, the standard rubbing type alcohol. Try using some of that with your wash. It works really well on cat pee. I know this from lots of experience with a cat that used to think that it wanted to be an only child, and everyone else in the household other than me was supposed to go away, and so it had a tendency to pee on the any item of clothing left on the floor that belonged to anyone other than me. It did make for a cleaner house. But I did have to figure out how to deal with it. And so isopropyl alcohol worked really well. And I've used it on my fibers. Test it if you're concerned. But yes, it does work. The one thing you have to be aware of with it is that isopropyl alcohol will take away the color from ink. Okay? Alcohol-based inks. I don't have any issue with it. It doesn't cause my fiber to bleed. The other thing I've discovered with it is that it does remove lacquer from old furniture, so be careful where you get it. So, okay, animal fibers. If it's an animal and its fiber is long enough that it feels like you can spin it, you can spin it. Whether or not it's soft, whether it's next to skin soft, whether it's coarse, whether it's prickly, that all depends on the fiber, just like with sheep. You can have sheep that have a really fabulous soft coat. You can have sheep that have a coarse coat. You can have sheep that come with a dual coat. You can have bison that come, this was a wonderful little fact to learn. The bison, the American bison, American buffalo, it actually, during winter, has 7 different distinct coats of fiber on their bodies. The base one, the undercoat, is wonderfully soft and spinnable. You just have to get rid of the other coats, right? The other hairs, the guard hairs. I think I have the word here. May not have it here. Don't blame me if I'm wrong. I think, because it's early in the morning, I'm doing a little insomnia spinning right now. Hemp fibers, I think, is the other word for the longer guard fibers in some sheep. For some reason, that's the word that I'm coming up with. But I also have plant-based fibers, the cellulose fibers on the brain, and I know that with some of those, you have the outer of some of the fibers, like flax makes linen. There we go. Flax. Oh, words, yes. I'm doing, so insomnia spinning, something I think a few of us recognize. I was not able to sleep this morning, so I am doing what is technically a little bit of insomnia spinning this morning. Not enough sleep to be speaking coherently, I guess. So in the animal, with the animal fibers, you may have a dual-coated animal. Angora rabbits even will often have, well, actually they do have, it's just that sometimes their outer coat, their guard hairs, are so fine, and they are what causes such a beautiful halo, that you don't really think of it as a dual coat, but it is. It has guard hairs, and then it has the soft undercoat. And as you comb the rabbit, you're trying to get that undercoat, but with rabbits that naturally shed, you get the guard hairs, and those wonderfully eyelash type guard hairs, unlike a lot of other guard hair, are soft, can be next to skin soft, and they don't just bloom, but they can really halo. I remember going to an event years ago that someone had knit themselves a little vest out of they were someone who sold Angora fiber at the market, and they had knit an Angora vest out of their long, beautiful Angora fiber. And they were wearing what looked like they were wearing a rabbit because it just haloed so much, that yarn did. So, animal-based fibers also, the protein fibers also include silk, what I'm spinning right now. So basically, if it is derived from an animal, or in the case of a silkworm, an insect, it's a protein fiber. But there is one protein fiber that popped up on my radar recently. I had heard about it watching a program, and then I actually had the opportunity to purchase some. But there is a fiber that's called milk fiber, and it is made through a man-made process. It is made from milk proteins. So it is still a protein fiber, but it's certainly now starting to move into that man-made category. But again, it is based on milk proteins. So, protein fibers. Now we move on to cellulose fibers. And cellulose fibers are, when we think of a cellulose fiber, the two big ones that come to mind are cotton and flax. And we, of course, know that flax, when you spin it, the plant is flax. When it's spun, it's linen, especially when it's nice and woven into linen cloth. So those are the two big ones that we think about. But now, with technology, oh, and the way that cotton and flax historically has been produced, has been processed, and has been spun, has, it's still something that if you want to grow it in your backyard and you have a climate to do it, you can do it. Then you also have some of the other more traditional fibers, nettle. I actually do have some giant Himalayan nettle that I'll be trying to spin. There is also Rami, which I'm now drawing a blank as to what plant it comes from. But again, there are a number of plants that have natural properties that make it easy for them to be processed. When I say easy, yes, there is work involved, and the work and the labor can be somewhat labor intensive, but there is, it can be easily by man with hand tools processed into spinnable fiber. And then we move into the category of fibers that are made from plants, but they've been manipulated just a little bit more, broken down into pulp, and then formed into fiber. And they they can range from fibers that are minimal modification to how do we spin corn fiber. I mean, when you think of corn, you just don't really think so much of fiber. So again, plant-based fibers, the cellulose fibers, they are wonderful. They're wonderfully diverse. And right now, here's a little plug. I am not affiliated. I am not getting any sponsorship, but I love supporting the Woolery. Not just simply because they are a great customer service, but the reason I like to mention the Woolery is that their website is like having a little mini encyclopedia of what's out there when it comes to spinning. Now, they have, a whole variety of spinning wheels, they have weaving tools, and they have, right at this moment, a huge variety of spinning fibers. And so if you're looking to see just kind of what they look like, information about them, I would suggest going online and going to thewoolery.com and checking out just the variety and reading about them. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating to see the different fibers that man has figured out to spin in this 21st century. So, again, not suggesting it necessarily to go out and buy anything. And if you have local stores, certainly give them your business. But the Woolery is a fabulous resource if you're looking to see what kind of things are out there to look for, maybe in your local stores. So I went down the plant fiber, the cellulose-based fiber rabbit hole, and I will be doing a study of a bunch of those here in the next number of months. So look forward to that on my channel. So then the last category of fiber falls into the truly man-made fiber. And while we want to, sometimes we lump it into, well, in the yarn, out in the commercial yarn section, we think of acrylic. And yes, acrylic is a very synthetic man-made fiber. And it is something that can be spinnable for the home spinner, and it also can have value. The thing I will mention about acrylic right from the get-go, besides the fact that it can be a non-allergenic option for people who have allergies, when they, spinners that have allergies, it has an interesting property that some of the other man-made fibers do not have. For instance, nylon, which is also a man-made fiber. But unlike nylon, which will take acid dyes, so when you put it in with your wool and you want to dye it, the nylon will take the acid dye. However, the acrylic will not. In fact, I belong to a couple tie-dye groups as well, and acrylic doesn't take dye. You have to have very specific dyes, and most of us just don't want to deal with them to get that acrylic to change color. Because acrylic, when you have colored acrylic, that is colored in the making of the, in essence, plastics. And so I know there's a number of people who are very firmly against using the plastics. However, there is a purpose for some of it, and that is something that we have to respect. Everybody has their own needs, and so we, in essence, acknowledging that it's out there. Acrylic has another advantage though, because it doesn't take dye. If, for instance, you want to blend together something on your blending board with lots of different fiber content, and then you want to over dye the final yarn, but you would really like to have some white stay white, acrylic is a good option. For instance, if you're wanting to do up a spin and you want it to have like a peppermint candy cane effect or look to it, and you're not wanting to have that red bleed onto your white, no matter, and red can do that, it really can. It wouldn't be, add in a little acrylic, because you can over dye that yarn and that white is going to stay white. So there is a purpose to these things, but we need to be aware, we need to be conscientious in how we use the materials we have available. And I think that's the biggest thing. For me, it's not about eliminating things from our use. They can have there are benefits, but it's about being wiser and more judicious in our use of the materials that we have. I think that makes us have a less negative impact on society when we are judicious in our actions. So man-made fibers, I've talked about. You have nylon, which is a wonderful additive to add strength when you don't want to use silk. It's a great alternative to using silk. It's a great add strength to socks. That's a big one. So you have nylon. You have things like The sparkly, there's a number of different types of sparkly. You can get nylon sparkly, so it can take color. You can have metallic sparklies. They're, you know, man-made fibers, fibers that are not being sourced from plant or animal, or at least, you know, not plant or animals that have been alive walking the earth in the last century type situation. So, man-made fibers, it's fun to sometimes experiment. It's sometimes interesting to go to the craft store, find yourself some man-made underspun or not even spun yarns on the shelf, and then spinning them. I've done some videos in the past showing the spinning of acrylic. It is it's just different. And again, there are a lot of different needs that people have, and we respect our differences. And that's the lovely thing about right now as a spinner. Your access, your availability of well-prepared tops and rovings, whether it's animal, plant, or synthetic, there really is a lot of availability. There's a lot of interest in it, and it makes it a delightfully fun time to spin. So that is my discussion, and I've only got a little bit left of my silk, and so I will get that done, but we will do that off camera because we are going to wrap up. So I hope that you have enjoyed this discussion of the different fibers out there. I hope you'll do a little bit of searching. Check your own local areas, your local stores, see what they have access to. Find sites that, you know, talk about the different types of spinning fibers. And certainly, as I said, I'm a huge fan of the woolery because they have been accessible, whether it is when I was in Colorado, or now I'm in Virginia, or my son who's in Germany. It's all been accessible to us, and it's a wonderful site. If I have a question, a lot of times just go right there to see what they're showing, what they're providing, and that's a good place to start. Other areas may have stores similar to them, and if they do, please, if you have a chance, put them in the comments. I'd love to know some other companies that are really trying to support the spinners of us. So I will let you go. I hope you've had another wonderful day and have taken time to unwind with fiber and fabric, and we will see you tomorrow.